Hello and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Oval Series here from Worldwide Technology Raceway, better known as Gateway. And we're here with a very interesting field top to bottom as the top open wheel oval talent takes to a very iconic venue in Madison, Illinois. It's not in St. Louis, gosh darn it. You could see the Gateway Arch off in the distance, but it is on the other side of the border. Sophie, what are we in for here tonight? We've got quite some special appearances being made here in the field tonight.
Yeah, there is some top talent from the iRacing IndyCar community on display here. There is the likes of Matt Hollabaugh, Ty Quila, Frankie Nguyen, aka Frisky Frankie is back, the New Hampshire winner of Jarrett Corey, and plenty others in this field that is absolutely stacked, as we are going to be racing on one of the more iconic open wheel short ovals as to grace the IndyCar calendar as of late. That being Gateway, aka the egg, so to speak. It's an egg-shaped oval. Turn 1 and 2 very tight, has a little bit of banking, whereas turn 3 and 4 is a wider radius and is very flat.
Yeah, we're actually riding out with Matt Hollabaugh, who's trying to do as much as he can to get some heat into those Firestone tires preceding his qualifying run. Coming in a little late into qualifying here. A number of drivers have already set time. Hollabaugh going to be one of the last amongst them, likely trying to make his second lap the fast one here as he's looking to maybe throw this one away, just getting the car and the tires ready to go for that second flyer. Brendan Trost provisionally on the pole with a 28.093, just 3 thousandths faster than Jarrett Corey in P2. Have to see if Hollabaugh is able to best either of them with his likely one and only flyer here from Gateway. And this track's a very distinct one in that it's kind of egg-shaped, turns 1 and 2 being banked and a bit of a wider arc than the likes of turns 3 and 4. As drivers will have to navigate kind of the flat portion of their flat foot to many extents as this race progresses. Hollabaugh comes off 4 here, heading down the front straightaway. Put him 7th on the board with a 28.176. Not quite enough to get to that front row. Solid run for Hollabaugh, I believe his series debut here in the Indy NXT Oval Series. And I think we're going to be in for an interesting one. Last season, this was one of the races we saw get kind of very racy, kind of a lot of cars able to make moves, particularly in turns 1 and 2, as you can kind of work lower lanes, slide up the track, and clear cars on the exit. Not too unlike the bigger IR18s here at Gateway. Of course, this is one of the few real-world ovals the Indy NXT Series goes to, alongside now the likes of Milwaukee and Nashville being the lone other two on the schedule. And we're getting to the closing portions of qualifying here. We'll run through the starting grid, and we've got some familiar names, but maybe not to viewers of exclusively our Indy NXT coverage here, so we'll get through each and every one of them here tonight.
Yes, Jacob, there's a stacked field again of 22 IL-15 machines. We're going to see a lot of different lines through 1 and 2. If this is anything like the bigger sister, the IR18, the high line is going to be pretty powerful in 1 and 2, whereas the bottom is going to be where you want to be in 3 and 4.
Yeah, and a lot of drivers are going to have to maybe make their way through the field here as we'll get into the starting lineup with Brendan Trost on the pole with a 28.093. Alongside him will be Luke Mansky Racing Esports, Jarrett Corey, the winner from New Hampshire earlier this season. Clay Kirchenbauer qualifies better than his son, the prodigy Indy. Indy will start back in 6th. We've got Frank Nguyen. Frisky Frankie lines up 4th ahead of Rogue Racing's Ty Quila. Indy Kirchenbauer will line up in the 6th spot. Matt Hollabaugh in the number 2 will be 7th for Satellite Racing. Crash Neon will be rolling off 8th. Jason Goodman in 9th. Current series points leader in Dylan Vilashinsky in the most dominant car we've seen all season long will roll off 10th. He'll have to work his way past a number of cars to the front. Gary Yost will be lining up 11th alongside Taylor Thurman. Luke Reed will line up 13th alongside Luca Tedesco in the 16. Ryan A. Brown, the winner from Iowa, will roll off 15th. Kevin Crotty rolls off 16th. Brandon Stevens 17th. Carlos Ramos in 18th. Alexander McBean in 19th. Vincent Vanderhoek will be 20th, and then Casey Lee and Joseph Heath will round out the 22-car field. And we get back to the front of the field, as it won't be too long here, as it's a single pace lap around the 1.25-mile Worldwide Technology Raceway here. 45 laps on tap, ready to cover the distance here from Gateway, and we'll see if these drivers will be ready to get rolling nice and steady here off of turn number 4. Pace car is in, field of control of Brandon Trost. He'll launch nice and early here. Get a sizable gap from the field here. Corey will clear behind him for the second spot. Clay Kirchenbauer is going to look to the inside here into turn 1, but not have quite enough momentum until maybe corner exit here. So look even to the inside further. It'll be 2x2 for third between Ty Keela fourth rather, between Frank Wynn and Ty Keela.
Yeah, and we see the field fanning out behind them into the back of the field. But up front, it is Brandon Trost, Jarrett Corey, just about half a second behind. And then there's the big gaggle of cars from Clay Kirchenbauer all the way back to Matt Hollabaugh and Crash Neon.
Yeah, you've got Ty and Frankie going side by side for the 4th spot. Indy's alongside Ty now heading down the back straightaway here. He'll have a bit more momentum and clear Ty into turn number 3. Hollabaugh will be looking to try to get into this scrap sooner rather than later, as Vilashinsky's already made 2 passes so far, kind of working that high lane, and he'll make it past Crash Neon and be looking for Hollabaugh next.
Yeah, it was kind of an uncharacteristic qualifying for Dylan Vilashinsky. Obviously, last week had a little bit of a miscue at his start at North Wilkesboro. But for the most part, he's been starting up front, so this is kind of interesting to see Vilashinsky work his way through the field.
Yeah, and this is likely one of the few tracks
where... Hollabaugh catches the wall!
Yeah, Hollabaugh, big moment off turn 4 there. Vilashinsky had to shoot down maybe a lane or two to try to avoid that. He'll be on the inside into 1 and 2 here. Try to garner up as much momentum on the exit as he can, as Ty Keela's still looking to the inside on Frank Wynn down the backstretch here. And I think this is one of the few tracks where maybe you're going to see it be relatively feasible to kind of work your way through the field, as Brandon Trost hasn't gotten really away from Jarrett Corey just yet. That gap sits around 0.2 of a second, as now Corey's under fire from Clay Kirchenbauer for the 2nd spot. And this is kind of like a smaller version of Motegi like we saw earlier on this season, in that drivers are going to be able to kind of work multiple lanes, albeit with a bit less space laterally to do so. As we see Clay Kirchenbauer work to the high side down the backstretch here on Corey, as Corey's going to stay tucked nice and low here. I think Clay's going to maybe get a bit of momentum down the front stretch here, and they'll be side by side heading into turn number 1.
Yeah, and Indy Kirchenbauer went purple that last lap. And also we're watching Dylan Vilashinsky is now working his way around Frisky Frankie. So Dylan Vilashinsky now on the verge of the top 5, only after about 6 laps, Jacob.
Yeah, Ty Keela's working over on Jarrett Corey down into turns 3 and 4 here. And I think what we're starting to see is maybe drivers not the best in qualifying, but maybe able to figure out a bit more once the race gets rolling here. Do want to thank everybody for kind of bearing with us through some of the technical issues we had getting this stream up on the air. YouTube seems to be having some sort of weird account outage issues going on tonight, the likes of subscription feeds, homepages, etc. And even the ability to switch into our wonderful P1 broadcasting account. Very difficult to do tonight, so we'll give thanks to, I believe, LGN for getting us on the air tonight. But side by side for second here, Ty Keela wants it from Clay Kirchenbauer, and Brendan Trost is licking his chops watching the battle behind him.
Yeah, that is exactly what Brendan Trost would want, because they are obviously holding each other up and kind of side drafting off each other. But Ty Keela is now kind of trying to focus forward and focus ahead.
Yeah, he'll look to the outside on Trost into 3 and 4 here. Clay's going to have a good run on the bottom here. We'll see if that changes down the front stretch here. They'll be side by side. And I think ultimately that Trost isn't going to really necessarily be able to walk away here. It's just going to be, can anybody behind him build up that momentum to make a run on him heading off into either end of the track here?
Obviously, we're seeing 3 wide there for a moment between Corey, Hollabaugh. Oh, they get in the wall! Corey and Nguyen, they were 3 wide for a moment there, and I think both of them caught the outside wall pretty hard.
Yeah, Crash Neon had to chuck it down the track a couple lanes to try to stay out of that, as he's now 3 wide with Jason Goodman kind of in the middle there. And just behind them is going to be Ryan Brown. They're all fighting tooth and nail for these last couple spots in the top 10 here. And it seems all throughout the field. We're side by side for the lead now as Ty Keela's gotten alongside Brendan Trost.
Yeah, Ty Keela may not have figured it out so much in qualifying, but he has obviously found something and has now taken over the lead from Trost. Trost not interested in giving it up, though, and is looking low in that pink #1 machine.
Hey, he's rolling back on the bottom. He'll clear off turn number 4 here. Ty might have a bound of momentum down the straightaway here, but he'll lead only briefly as Trost goes straight back to the point. Keela looking back to the inside into 1 and 2.
Yeah, it seems that Trost enters really high in 1 and 2, and Keela has found a way to make the lower line really work, as once again, Trost finds the low line and is likely to take the lead back in 3 and 4, as these two just seem to be swapping the lead off and on, while Indy Kirchenbauer is also trying to find a way around Keela.
Yeah, and this doesn't look too unlike races we've seen on lower rungs on the road to Indy ladder here from Gateway, particularly in the Indy Pro, now known in the real world as the USF Pro 2000 machine. You kind of see a lot of guys be able to work a move onto one end of the track, and then the other cars behind them work the move back the other direction, and ultimately it's going to maybe come down to maybe be a bit of defense heading off into turns 3 and 4 that's going to ultimately win out at the end of the going here as we reach almost a third of the way through here. Ty Keela looking again to the inside on Brendan Trost for the point.
Yeah, there might be some strategy on when you kind of time a pass. Like, at Gateway, it's a short oval in the big cars, right? But in these cars, this is pretty much one of the larger tracks that we go to and regularly run, Jacob. And so, think about it like how you would drive Pocono for a bit of, if you try to pass on the turn 1 on the last lap, you're giving your opponent a chance to draft off of you and pass you into the tunnel turn. Whereas here, when Ty Keela lines this move up, as we see him once again go to the inside in turn 1 and 2, he's giving Trost the ability to really make a pass on the low side into 3 and 4. This time, Keela defends, and Trost is kind of now stuck on the outside into 3 and 4. He's now found a way around Vilashinsky and is able to get back to the bottom, and now he is the one who's going to be looking low into turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, Vilashinsky's worked his way into the top 5 here. He's running to the inside of Indy Kirchenbauer, heading off into 1 and 2 here, and he's likely going to try to stay even keel as Kirchenbauer makes contact with the wall. That'll move Vilashinsky to 3rd well instead here, and we'll see if he opts to stay running high or comes back low. He opts to kind of stick in the middle between the 2 cars ahead, maybe looking for the clean air on the front of his IL-15 as Keela's going to look to the inside for the point once more.
Yeah, it's been very much a back and forth between Keela and Trost, but now Trost has to kind of look out for Vilashinsky, as Vilashinsky is now going to be all over the gearbox there as Trost looks low. Vilashinsky also trying to follow Trost, possibly maybe make a move on Keela as well.
Yeah, and as much as we've seen Brandon Trost in IndyCar competition, this may be the first time the likes of a Dylan Vilashinsky has seen Brandon Trost in action here on the oval side of things. I mean, he seems to hail from the sprint car world, so I don't know how much Brandon Trost gets out to sprint car land, but Vilashinsky, this may be the first time he's seen a Brandon Trost. Obviously, Ty Keela's made a number of appearances in the series over the course of its running. As Vilashinsky's going to go 3 wide on the bottom. Put Trost all the way out.
3 wide, a very forceful maneuver there. As Kirchenbauer's looking to maybe make it 4 wide potentially there.
Yeah, Corey working the bottom now of that 3 wide for 3rd.
Yeah.
Oh, car on the wall.
Big contact, Holubas in the air. Holubas up and over.
Yeah, I think that was...
Up and over goes Matt Holubas.
Yeah, I believe that was going to be Jason Goodman making contact with the turn 2 wall, and Holubas nowhere to go. We'll get it back wound up on the replay to see just what happened to Mr. Goodman and friends. Or I guess competitors, let's put it that way. So we're heading down into turns 1 and 2 here. We're here with Jason Goodman. He's working the middle lane between Holubas, and that actually might have been
Ryan Brown.
Yeah, Ryan Brown, the two sharing the same livery. Ryan Brown gets up into the fence. Hollabaugh nowhere to go. Up into the air, up and over, and tumbling down the back straightaway. Gets pushed along by Goodman's car, as Goodman's going to lose a front wing from that. And I don't know if Hollabaugh has to have damage from that, surely, right? His car.
He's missing a side pod. He's missing a side pod, but has no meatball. The only person with a meatball from that entire accident is Clay Kirchenbauer. So Hollabaugh might have to pit here to get his front wing repaired as well, and possibly get some side pod stuff. As we see him now coming down onto pit lane.
Yeah, that Satellite Racing #2 machine somehow, despite rolling down the back straightaway, only missing the right side pod and some front wing damage. We'll see if Hollabaugh can get back out there in that IL-15 as we reach close to the halfway mark. Do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Nice, solid stream here from Gateway. Going to be interesting to see how this race kind of progresses as we get a bit of a breather here. A bit of a reset point. This is going to maybe give us an opportunity to kind of look at the point standings heading into this race as we work under yellow here with Dylan Vilashinsky leading the race and leading the point standings over Indy Kirchenbauer in the second spot. You see Ryan A. Brown in third, Jason Goodman, Chris Fletcher rounding out the top 5 with maybe a week to count. Jarrett Corey still has a couple weeks he needs to put up on the board. Taylor Thurman, who's put in some good runs, Clay Kirchenbauer, Robert Campus, and Crash Neon rounding out the top 10. You see the likes of John Corrin, Gary Yost, Corey Kobe, Frank Wynn's on here, all the way down to Nick Neben down in 24th alongside Matt Smith in the 25th spot. You can see everybody listed off there for the top 25 in points. And, you know, there's maybe opportunities for drivers here late in the season to bound up the point standings, given maybe a solid result here and a sizable strength of field here, some 3,300 here from Gateway. One of the better strength of fields we've gotten this season, obviously in no due part given this track's real-world appearance on the Indy NXT schedule. Only dwarfed just slightly by that Nashville Superspeedway in terms of size and scale, if you will. Obviously, the concrete, more highly banked Nashville provides a completely different race as we saw last season in Indy NXT Oval Series competition. But nonetheless, it's a very, very dynamic track here we're seeing from Gateway, much like we saw it just one season ago. Lights are out on the pace car. Vilashinsky leads Ty Keela, Jarrett Corey, Indy Kirchenbauer, Brandon Trost, Crash Neon, Frank Wynn, Taylor Thurman, and Kevin Crotty rounding out the top 10. Let's give some shout-outs to maybe some guys fringing outside the top 10 as well, with the likes of Luke Reed, Luca Tedesco, and Gary Yost cruising around 11th through 13th. You got the likes of Brandon Stevens in 14th and Carlos Ramos in 15th. They'll be looking to maybe mount some charges here as we work down the back straightaway here for the final time under this yellow flag and work our way onto lap number 23, getting onto the halfway distance of the 45-lap event here from Gateway.
Yes, and familiar sight, the field under the control of that black and green machine of Dylan Vilashinsky. Pace car is off. Everyone waiting on Vilashinsky. Vilashinsky goes, and there's a bit of a stack up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if maybe he just caught the drivers out behind him, but Keela doesn't get quite as good of a launch as maybe we saw in the initial start from the front couple drivers behind the pole sitter. Jarrett Corey's going to funnel into line here. Field stays relatively single file for the time being, but as we kind of saw with that opening stint, the leader's able to inch away early here, but ultimately the draft can kind of be worked by these cars behind to get them back into contention if they play their cards right. We'll just have to see how that progresses over the opening couple laps here as Ty Keela goes defensive down into turns 1 and 2 here.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that Matt Hollabaugh has rejoined the race. Mentioned that they have toe damage as well, so keep an eye on that. That might possibly creep up and catch out Matt Hollabaugh, who is rejoined in 21st place.
Yeah, Keela still working with Corey down the front stretch here. Indy Kirchenbauer's worked his way into this picture. Corey's going to look to the inside down in turns 1 and 2 here. Going to get alongside, try to build the momentum up. Not going to be able to clear Mr.
He's
Keela.
Running. Yeah, he was way up the hill there. Possibly just getting a bunch of aero push there. Crash Neon set the fastest lap of the race of a 27.852 from Crash Neon in 6th place.
Yeah, Indy Kirchenbauer and Brendan Trost working the high lane on Jarrett Corey on the inside now. That lane's starting to build up some momentum. Indy's running about as high as we've seen anybody run turns 1 and 2 tonight, all the way through the corner. And we're starting to see it now. You see Vilashinsky going a bit defensive as he realizes that draft behind him is starting to creep into the picture.
Well, he's been consistently about 4/10 ahead of Keela. That really hasn't come down all that much. You just see him working the snake. And what that's also doing is it's kind of forcing some awkwardness here, because you can see that Indy Kirchenbauer was building a run there, and then Keela's kind of cutting it off.
I think
because of that trying to waft back and forth to pull whatever draft they can off Vilashinsky. Sorry.
I think Vilashinsky knows that too, right? He's kind of been consistently doing it because he realizes if maybe he doesn't, that'll be the opportunity for these drivers behind him to catch on in as Ty Keela goes down to the bottom. Kirchenbauer's there now on the high side. He can't come back up here. Kirchenbauer's going to be rolling the momentum on the high side here. Is he going to have anything down the back straightaway?
Trost is around off the front wheel of one of the off Ryan A. Brown.
Roll that back, see what happens to Trost heading down through turns 1 and 2 here. You see him working in that pink machine on the high side here. You see Ryan Brown duck to the bottom here. Jarrett Corey's working up the lane on the higher side of the two. Trost now ducks to the middle as we enter to the middle of the corner here. Ryan Brown, Trost. Honestly, it looks like they just come together kind of right as the corner starts to unfurl towards 2, and he'll go around into the outside wall, rear end first. Likely night done for the driver of the number 1 tonight. Likely not what he was looking for. After a rough result from Phoenix in the IndyCar Oval Series, he's back with another rough night here from Gateway. I don't believe any other cars get involved here as he misses, all the other cars behind check up as the caution flag flies, so he's the only one involved in this one. Not looking great for the driver of the number 1 tonight.
Yeah, and there's definitely some anger over the voice chat about that incident, because both cautions tonight centering around Ryan A. Brown. And so there's quite a few drivers voicing displeasure over things. Can't comment too much on that, Jacob, but it does seem that there is quite the beef.
Yeah, Brown's kind of been noteworthy and cited for being very, very aggressive, working his way through the field. Obviously, he's qualified deep a number of times throughout the season. Obviously, picked up the win at Iowa, following basically a late race battle between himself and Indy Kirchenbauer. And Kirchenbauer ultimately just didn't make the right move at the right time, giving Brown the win there from Iowa. It's going to be interesting to see as he's currently sitting in the 4th spot behind Indy now. They obviously have the history they've had over the course of this season. You know, the likes of Phoenix come to mind. They came to blows late in the going, I do believe. So certainly going to be interesting to see if we see maybe another bout of trouble between the drivers of the 5 and 12 tonight. Reset the field real quickly here. You've got Vilashinsky still leading Ty Keela. That remains unchanged. Indy Kirchenbauer's up to 3rd spot. Ryan Brown, Crash Neon, Jarrett Corey, Frank Wynn, Taylor Thurman, Kevin Crotty, Luke Reed makes it into the top 10. Gary Yost in 11th. Got the likes of Brandon Stevens, Luca Tedesco, Carlos Ramos, and Joseph Heath rounding out the top 15. Jason Goodman, Alexander McBean, Vincent Vanderhoek, and Casey Lee. 19 cars undamaged so far tonight. The likes of Matt Hollabaugh and Brendan Trost facing at least ailed cars in one fashion or another. See if we can get a look at Trost's car. He's got it repaired, so seemingly he's got a full machine. Whether that's got some underlying damage still, we'll have to see, and maybe he'll work his way back through the field in the final third of this race as we've got 15 laps to go here from Gateway.
Yeah, Trost has returned to the track, running at 20th, only has Hollabaugh behind him, who was taking further damage repairs. Remember, he had toe damage as well from the previous caution from when he went airborne. So He's now trying to get back around to the tail end of the field, possibly having more and more of that damage fixed. Maybe Hollabaugh can work his way up and maybe kind of stop some of the bleeding when it comes to the I rating loss, potentially.
Yeah, he likewise had a rough night at Phoenix earlier on this evening. Lights are out on the pace car. Vilashinsky will get control of the field once more. Driver of the number 3 Get Good Racing Machine. Common sight here at the front of the field in Indy NXT Oval Series competition. He'll be looking to get this last third of the race put together cool, calm, and collected. Green flag is out. Vilashinsky's going.
Green, green, green.
Vilashinsky goes and immediately is starting the snake that kind of bought him the gap previously.
I think Ty was much more prepared for it that time, and he hasn't lost quite as much time here. He's, maybe hanging 3.5 tenths back as that gap's going to close down the backstretch here. This might be the best shot we've seen at Vilashinsky going vulnerable here in the final stage of the race.
Yeah, we are currently working lap 33. About 18 laps to go for Dylan Vilashinsky and Ty Keela at the front end of this field.
Yeah, 33 of 45 now. Vilashinsky cuts down to the bottom on the backstretch. They're too wide for the 4th spot between Ryan Brown and Jared Corey. Corey on the inside heading off into turn number 3. Not quite alongside. Brown will cover it off. This is starting to build up into a battle. You got Corey, Crash Neon, and Frank Wynn all under a blanket with the likes of Taylor Thurman and Kevin Crotty just off the heels of them.
Yeah, as you can see, Ryan Brown doing the same thing Dylan Vilashinsky's been doing of trying to weave. It's less effective for Vilashinsky this time around. Ty Keela is only 2 tenths back. Still able to get up to the gearbox of the Get Good Racing Machine to possibly challenge for the lead here.
Yeah, Andy Kirchenbauer is there. They're currently a 3-car breakaway, but I imagine that won't stay the case for long, especially as they continue to kind of snake their way down the straights here from Gateway. Trost goes purple with a 27.658, so certainly that machine seems to be perfectly up to snuff as he's worked his way up to 17th. Hollabaugh up to 19th. We'll see if they start working their way through the rest of the field here with coming to 10 to go.
Yeah, Trost currently working on the machine of Luca Tedesco for the 15th spot.
Ty Keela to the inside on Vilashinsky for the lead. Can we see another new winner this year?
Looks like he has the advantage.
Oh, contact!
Oh, contact! Vilashinsky goes way up the track there off the wheel of Keela. Allows Indy Kirchenbauer through.
And it'll put Corey to the inside looking on Ryan Brown. They'll be too wide behind Vilashinsky, too wide ahead of him. He'll be looking to rebound after a bit of wheel banging heading off into turn 3 between himself and Keela. 9 laps to go here, running out of time. Going to have to make the move on 2 cars before the finish and make it back to the lead.
Trost has gotten around Luca Tedesco. So Trost, again, continues his march back up through the pack as we see this battle for the lead between Kirchenbauer, Keela, and Vilashinsky. Vilashinsky obviously took the lead with that bold 3-wide maneuver into turn number 3. Could we see a repeat of that, Jacob?
Certainly not out of the question. It's just a matter of how early or how late do you opt to do it. We've seen kind of the leader become rather vulnerable as the momentum kind of builds up with the cars behind them. Vilashinsky moves up to 2nd as Kirchenbauer and Frank Wynn nearly get into the wall there off turn 2. They'll be looking down to the inside, down the backstretch here. Single file for the front 3 and then 2x2x2 for the next couple cars.
Yeah, Vilashinsky has now made his way back into the 2nd spot. Keela now is returning the favor. That's kind of the double-edged sword of those moves like the Indy Snake. As we see Vilashinsky has retaken the lead on the high side out of 2. Keela now tucking down where Vilashinsky's now defending low. And that's forcing Keela to work the high side in 3 and 4. But that's kind of the double-edged sword of those kind of defensive moves like that, Jacob, is when you do them a bunch, people might start doing them back to you.
Yeah, it also leaves you vulnerable from somebody potentially being able to build the momentum as the high side, as Keela's going to look to the inside and 1-2. Again, he's made this move a number of times already tonight. Comes off turn number 2. He'll snake down to the bottom. Vilashinsky goes to the high side. He thinks better of that. He'll have the momentum down the backstretch here into turns 3 and 4, side by side for the lead with 5 to go.
Yeah, 5 laps to go, and obviously Keela has prepared for the over-under move that Trost was doing on him earlier, as now it looks like Kirchenbauer making it almost 3 wide for the lead there. Vilashinsky has the lead through 1 and 2, but kind of loses some of the momentum off the corner. Big caution! Big wreck!
Yost, Corey. There's one more machine involved in that, not quite able to make it out. That's Kevin Crotty in that yellow and black machine. We stay green. Keela's still at the point now. Vilashinsky looking to the outside. We're coming to 3 to go this time. And that turn 2 wall seemed to strike again for those drivers involved in that crash, but we stay at the front here. Indy Kirchenbauer looking to the inside, 3 wide.
Bottom. 3 wide. Bold move from the Prodigy.
It'll fade to 2 as Vilashinsky will end up under fire from Frank Wynn. They'll be 3 wide back at the point here, heading off into 1 and 2. That's going to be tricky to hold here.
Yeah, but we have seen Kirchenbauer work the high line. Now Vilashinsky's up on the high line. Keela has the point now. Kirchenbauer looking everywhere.
They're coming to the white flag this time. Who's going to make the move to win the race? Ty Keela has it, heading off into turn number 1. He'll go to the low side. Vilashinsky stays up high. We'll almost be 3 going into 1 and 2.
Yeah, Vilashinsky has the high line. Keela gets the run off the corner. Vilashinsky's drafting. Keela takes him all the way down to the white line. And I think that might have done it here as Vilashinsky runs him tight, and Kirchenbauer is there. Kirchenbauer looking for any space possibly as they head to the line. It's going to be Keela just over Indy Kirchenbauer, just over Vilashinsky. There were 3 line across the line.
Yeah, 3 wide at the line. The top 3 separated by under 1/10 of a second as Ty Keela is going to pick up, I believe, his first win in Indy NXT Oval Series competition, maybe Indy NXT Top Split broadcasted coverage as well. Rogue racing driver in that iconic Lucky Charms car. He'll be wiggling it on down into turns 3 and 4 as he'll tap it into Matt Hollabaugh, his technical teammate in that Alliance. Work off turn number 4, and he'll get to celebrating here for a win in Indy NXT competition from Gateway. We'll run you through the entire finishing order as he celebrates on the front stretch here, burning it down in Gateway land. I really need to figure that one out. Ty Keela will win over Indy Kirchenbauer. Dylan Vilashinsky will round out the podium here from Gateway. Ryan A. Brown finishes 4th ahead of Taylor Thurman. Frisky Frank Wynn will finish 6th, and then number 6, Crash Neon 7th. Brandon Trost from 20th to 8th in the final 15 laps. Big hard charge from the driver, the number 1 tonight. Impressive stuff from him. Jason Goodman will finish 9th ahead of Luke Reed in the 10th spot. And then you've got the likes of Brandon Stevens, Carlos Ramos, Joseph Heath, Matt Hollabaugh, Alexander McBean, Vincent Vanderhoek, Casey Lee, Luca Tedesco, Jared Curry, Gary Yost, rounding out the top 20. And then the likes of Kevin Crotty and Clay Kirchenbauer involved in earlier incidents, rounding out the 22-car IL-15 Indy NXT field from Gateway. I'm sure we'll have some happy, maybe some frustrated drivers talking us through a very action-packed race here as Ty Keela continues to burn it down against the inside wall here from Gateway.
Yeah, what an absolutely action-packed event as we currently wait for everyone to get into the interview room. Just absolute passes everywhere, some incredibly aggressive driving from some bold maneuvers to ultimately set us up for that incredible near 3 wide finish for the lead at the line here, Jacob.
We're getting cars rolled back up for the interview room here. Make sure everybody gets their due diligence, their justice for a very action-packed, thrilling race here. Is there was no one safe past the first couple of laps if you weren't able to break that toe nice and early. So it was certainly good to see a good bit of racing at the front of the field. Not something we get every week here in Indy NXT competition. We'll get the likes of Dylan Vilashinsky and others up into the broadcast booth here. There's Dylan. We'll get him on up here once we get the fancy graphic back up here for him. There we go. We'll get the camera zoomed in a bit better there. There we go. We'll do this one. Get him on up here. Dylan Vilashinsky, Sophie Connell, Jacob Collins, P1 Broadcasting. What do you got?
I got you guys. How you doing?
Good. Quite the action-packed race here. Obviously, you started deeper in the field than you are maybe accustomed to in this series. Starting from 10th, work your way up onto the podium. We're leading in kind of the middle stage of the race here, but ultimately Ty Keeler was able to reel you in off that last restart with about 15 to go and was able to hold on to the lead with maybe not comfortably, because it was certainly a battle for it, but walk us through your race, working your way through the field and battling for the win tonight.
Well, I screwed up qualifying, so it was a full-on blitz from the green flag for that full first stint, doing everything I could to try and get as close to the front of the field as fast as I could. My goal, my goal right now is to try and just finish in front of Indy, so I try and secure this championship. And I knew this race was going to pay a lot of points now that we split. And I got the lead, and then we had that first restart, and I pulled away, and I was holding that half second gap. And I was like, okay, as long as they're fighting with each other, I think I can just kind of sit here and we'll be all right. And then we had that final restart. I just didn't get the jump that I was hoping I was going to get on Ty. And he was able to reel me back in. By that point, since he wasn't fighting anybody, I was kind of just free pickings. But I did my best to try and stick with him, even with a little bit of contact back and forth that I somehow didn't get damage from. I really don't understand that. But I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
Didn't quite beat Indy, but I'll take a third.
Yeah, it was certainly a very tight battle, bit of contact off into 3 and 4 at a point there. You mentioned maybe not getting the jump you wanted on that final restart, and Ty kind of reeled you back in. Obviously, everybody was kind of working the very defensive high to low on the straightaways, trying to break that toe as best as they possibly can. It didn't really seem to be too effective if once you kind of were within about half a second, those cars behind were kind of able to roll in very, very heavily. Kind of walk us through what it was like having to deal with, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 lanes worth of travel around here. Is there was cars basically everywhere all over this track tonight.
It was sketchy when the spotter said 3 wide a couple of times. I'm still on a single monitor, so I'm just kind of turning in where I hope a 3 wide lane should be, and then kind of just hoping and praying for the best. Yeah. It's sketchy as heck. I was really hoping I could try and get to the inside on Ty at one point, because I feel like if I could have done that, I maybe would have had the shot to try and maybe get ahead of him. But the way he was defending into turn 1, I just could not get around the outside of him like I thought I could.
Yeah, it ultimately seemed like the inside line was the place you wanted to be, especially coming to the line here. Sophie, what do you got for Dylan tonight?
Yeah, Dylan, can you kind of walk through some of the just the mental aspect of really that final restart? Because it seemed like you were really trying to break up the draft and make it difficult for Keela. Ultimately, that didn't pay off, obviously, because of the contact there. But just how difficult is it knowing that you kind of had the race kind of made there? You were almost a half second ahead consistently, and then had that caution to have to kind of try and reset and build it back up.
It was a little disappointing when I started seeing Ty, catching up like they weren't doing on that first restart. With that first restart, I got that jump, and it seemed like everybody else behind kind of stayed grouped together. So they were so busy fighting each other that they weren't really able to make any ground up on me. But on that second restart, everybody kind of stayed single file all the way up until they caught up with me. And then the fight ended up being for first instead of second.
Well, ultimately, a fight kept you on the podium here. Nonetheless, here, Dylan, solid run for you here tonight in pursuit of that all-coveted Indy NXT Oval Series Championship. You well know the drill by this point. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Yes, sir. As usual, shout out to the Get Good Racing community, and shout out to the Sprint Car Cup. They run 6 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Thank you, Dylan, for joining us once again here for the top split of Indy NXT Oval Series competition. I believe we're heading off next week to Richmond Raceway, another traditional short track venue. Should be good to see. Hope to get you there.
Yep, I'm excited for that one. That's the first track that I ran in these cars where I kind of thought like, hey, I kind of know how to drive these things. So I'm excited for that.
Well, we certainly looking forward to you having it figured out there in a week's time. Go celebrate tonight.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
That'll do it for Dylan Vilashinsky, P3 tonight. Then we'll bring up Indy Kirchenbauer, the prodigy. Nice run for him. Started on the third row, made it up to the first row in terms of starting position. Indy Kirchenbauer, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Yep, I gotcha.
Well, one position short than we all know you probably want to be, but it looked like a good bit of fun out there, having to kind of carve your way up a couple spots and stay at the front of the field there late in the going. Kind of walk us through what it was like navigating 2-3 wide through both ends of the track here from Gateway.
Yeah, it was a super fun race for sure. It's just frustrating that we had all those yellows because of one person and one person all the time. So, yeah, was just wishing for one spot better, of course. I know a couple days ago I helped Ty with this car because I felt like I would be decent here, and I thought it would be nice to get a big SOF, and I was helping Ty, and I definitely shouldn't have done that. He was really fast, but yeah, it was just really good side-by-side racing. 3-eyed photo finish was cool. And to beat Dylan, that's good, but I don't know if this will be enough for the championship. Maybe if I finish one spot better, it would be. It's still in the fight. I'll have to do the math on that one, but yeah, it's really fun race.
Yeah, certainly a good bit of fun, and ultimately, you know, you were one of the drivers willing to make some of the biggest risks, taking it 3 wide on the bottom on a couple occasions. Kind of walk us through the calculations you're making and trying to get those moves made, especially knowing just how much this track kind of has its momentum taken away from you very, very quickly if those moves don't land maybe the way you want them.
Yeah, it's yeah, it was interesting to try to find like when to go to the bottom, when to not, because there was a very thin line behind that. Bottom was better in 3 and 4, but also you could still get a run on the top, so you could easily do like a slider as well. There's lots of ways you could pass. That's why I screwed up my qualifying and qualified P8, I think, and was able to get up all the way to a P in the top 3 that whole race. So yeah, it just sucks what happens to a lot of our competitors. But yeah, that was really fun race. Hope more people can come out to Gateway next season, seeing how really fun that was. And
Yeah, certainly some tough breaks for a number of drivers throughout the race here tonight. Your father not included amongst them for sure. Sophie, what do you got for Indy tonight?
Yeah, Andy, because you mentioned obviously the championship situation. Obviously, you needed to make big points on Vilashinsky to have a chance at it. How do you kind of mentally prepare yourself to know I need to be aggressive, but I also don't want to be too aggressive that I throw it all away?
yeah, I remember when he was working his way up, I was trying to get my dad to hold him off, and he was able to do that for a few laps. But yeah, he was just really fast, able to get up to the lead like that. He's really good. But yeah, it's just interesting race for sure. Quality lines are so different than the race lines. Able to work pretty much everywhere in 1 and 2 as well. Yeah, it was really fun. And next week at Richmond, and I also just wanted to say I think just because Dylan got third he got more points for getting third in this than he would by winning some of the other ones. So I just want to say, I'm pretty sure now he has it locked, but maybe there's like a 1% chance for me. So congrats to him on the championship. Well deserved. And yeah, just felt like an idiot last race because I pitted with I pitted in the IndyCar Oval SOF when I did not have tires available and would have won that race if I would not have done that. So I was just hoping to come back here. I was probably driving very well. I was driving very angry. But yeah, I was just glad we could get some good racing in this series. Yeah, it was a fun race. Good refresher after that Phoenix race where if there wasn't a yell, if that would have gone green, I would have won, and if I would have just stayed out on that thing, I would have also won. So did probably the biggest, sold that race more than anybody ever has. So I was hoping to get higher, but you know it's okay. Podium's good. I had fun.
Yeah, always good to get a bit of a rebound rolling, and still plenty left to fight for here as we roll off into the last couple of weeks of the season here in Indy NXT competition, in particular with the likes of Richmond Raceway and that tricky triangle in Pocono. You know the drill, though, Indy. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out? Floor is yours.
Yeah. I'll shout out my go-kart sponsors, BT Marine Associates, Make Something on YouTube, Bayside Heating and Cooling, Votive Racing, Drive With, and yeah, just thank you to my dad for running these, even though he probably just lost a buttload of IR. So yeah, we'll rebound for next week at Richmond. I know qualifying is going to be important there, so yeah, it'll definitely be fun to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll look forward to next week in Richmond, and you go out and celebrate this podium finish here from Gateway tonight.
Yep, I'll try. Not first, but
And that'll do it for Indy Kirchenbauer. We'll bring up Ty Keela. He's been nice and patient here tonight. We'll get that Lucky Charms car up here. We'll get him on up here. Ty, Sophie Connell, Jacob Collins, the Mario coin sound makes its appearance here on the air. How you doing tonight? Big win for you here in the top split of the Indy NXT Oval Series. Kind of walk us through your race here from Gateway.
Wow, very unexpected. That's what I'll say about that. Yeah, that was a pretty intense race. Elbows out all around and lots of good racing, though. Super clean, at least at the front. I know some incidents were happening throughout the race. I think, I don't know, we went 3 wide, 4 wide at one point. Just really trying to stay alive. I don't know how I managed to get up towards the front in the beginning exactly. It was kind of a blur. You know, it seemed like it happened pretty quick, but you know, I had a nice little moment with Indy last night, watching him how he was driving it, and he said, "Hey, turn a little bit more," and I was like, "Uh-oh," and I turned a little bit more, and it worked. So this car is just much different than IndyCar. So luckily, I was able to figure out something. But wow, not what I expected a Gateway race to look like.
Yeah, it's certainly a bit of a difference compared to what you see in the likes of the IndyCar, both in how you're driving the car and the track kind of races. It's obviously a lot closer. It kind of reminded us of the Motegi race from earlier this season, for those of you that caught that, albeit with kind of less area to navigate, given just how much wider and bigger that track is over in Japan. But, you know, you said it came in as a bit of a surprise to be up here, but you ultimately kind of held your own at the front of the field, especially with kind of picking your line with where you wanted to run down the straightaways off into the corners, and that seemed to help you a good bit in maintaining the track position. But that's also some high-risk plays, as we've seen that kind of drag some cars back as maybe the outside lane will build up momentum and work their way by you. Kind of walk us through just how much you were kind of taking those calculated risks and making them work here tonight.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a chess match. You know, there was a couple times I went a little too low, I think, out of 2 on the straightaway, and then I think what that allowed to happen was, I don't know if I just didn't have enough pace coming out of the corner or something, but it allowed Dylan to get a nice run on me, so we were a little bit more side to side going into the corners, and I realized that was not working out as well as I wanted it to. So I just made sure I got as close to him as I could go on the outside, but not letting him just have free reign. I didn't want to go down low anymore, so I was like, all right, let's just stay a little higher, kind of work on that exit, getting that little extra speed, and that just helped to maintain the front coming out of four. And it seemed like what I noticed when he got out front after, or I think it was right before that caution, once he got away from me and Indy when we were fighting there for a little bit, it was impossible to really catch his draft. So that's when I realized, it's definitely effective. Once I got closer to him off that second caution, though, I realized that, you're not just going to run away. You can't just keep everyone back. So just trying to pick the right lanes, trying to stay as high in the corner as I can with still giving room for people going into that corner going into one. So yeah, just a chess match. That was really fun, actually. I was having a blast racing wheel to wheel with Dylan and Indy there.
It certainly looked like a load of fun from up here in the booth, and the chess match played itself out, and ultimately you came out the king here from Gateway. You know the drill, Ty. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Shout out to both of you for putting on the show, as always. Always love to go back and watch these. Shout out to Shane Coker for letting me run his helmet there, the Votive Indy Derby helmet with the rose. I love that helmet. It looks really good on the broadcasts. So he runs a great league out there. Shout out to Indy for helping me out with getting a little bit better at that track. But only had like 10 minutes of practice in there, so got lucky there. But thanks to his help. Shout out to Dylan on his podium as well, and shout out to Matt. I know he had a tough race, Matt Hollabaugh, but he came back and fought hard. So shout out to him. I think that's it.
Well, thanks for joining us here at Gateway, Ty. Hopefully we'll catch you maybe next week from Richmond. Hey,
it's always possible. It just depends on how we're feeling day to day, right?
That makes sense to me, Ty. Go celebrate with everybody tonight. Good win.
Thanks. I enjoyed the burnouts. You guys take care.
There we go. That'll do it for Ty Keela tonight. And I have a very quick plane ride I need to go catch to the virtual Virginia International Raceway for the Legends Road Cup. Those who know me know I love me some Legends Road Cup. It's the secondary love for me. So we'll be brief here. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll get plenty more of these fantastic oval races here at Indy NXT competition. Don't you worry. And we got plenty of other coverage here on P1. For you to check out, and we'll thank those that do all the difficult jobs all around the world that let us bring you the fun things we do, like Indy NXT Oval Series action here on P1 Broadcasting. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good night. We will catch you next time.